Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, Tristin, what are we talking about today?
Well, as per usual, we've got a broad subject.
Broad.
Very broad. We're talking about financial inputs
Okay.
as a concept.
What are the real financial inputs? That's the question.
Yeah, well, traditionally, I think you'd put it down to, well, probably a lot of accounting terms, to be honest. You'd be looking at revenue sources, income. But
Yeah.
it doesn't really end up being that. They're more.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here and have my little rant because obviously
You rant? No.
because obviously this is something I'm really passionate about. What are the real financial inputs in people's lives and in their business? So our audience, as hopefully you've tuned in and realized, is professional advisors generally. So financial advisors, accountants, and I'm really talking to you guys, but business coaches, consultants, lawyers, everything we're talking about today is, again, important if you are in the profession of advice and you are looking to go beyond being, good, maybe even great, to being exceptional. So this is the program for those advisors who are already good at what they're doing and they're like us and they want to go deeper and look at how to actually create a bigger impact for people. So that disclaimer, because it was kind of an intro, but it's also a disclaimer out of the way. Yeah, I am going to kind of call out coaches and financial advisors and accountants in particular and say to them, hey, what the F are you doing? So you're a financial advisor. You think you're dealing with the financial planning of a client, right? So, but if you're really dealing with the financial planning and the financial situation of a client, then how can you actually say you're doing that when you're not truly dealing with the real inputs for that? And if you're an accountant and you're giving business advice, as I think most business people hope that they get from their accountant, then if you're not dealing with the real financial inputs, then how can you actually say that you're giving them business advisory? Not only that, you're missing out on creating the most fundamentally transformative components for a client. You're missing out on actually helping them change their life. So, yeah, I'm speaking directly to you, and I am saying to you that I'm intimately familiar with financial advice and accounting professions and, legal professions and coaching for that matter, because at the end of the day, that's what we're directly doing as well. So I'm looking at you and saying, you're not going deep enough. You're not actually dealing with the true financial inputs. And so let's talk about financial advice to start with, right?
Sure.
So how does financial planning generally work? What kind of things do you sit down and talk to a client about? What kind of questions do you ask, Tristin?
Well, you're fact finding really. So, how much you earn, how much you save, outgoings, incomings, depending on the age, probably different types of investments, planning for retirement, how much you need to have, when you need to have it by, when you can stop working. Probably some other stuff I'm forgetting as well.
Yeah, look, I think that's a reasonable summary. So it's this whole idea of holistic advice, right? And that's it's been a catchword in financial advice. And then when I delve into the process that most financial advisors use, I'm like, that's not holistic. That's partitioned. So in other words, you're dealing with, at least in my definition, outcomes, right? You're not looking at inputs, you're looking at outcomes. So how much money do you earn, right? How much money are you likely to earn between now and retirement? What's your expenses? What are the things you need to spend money on, right? These are all outputs of someone's life, right? This is all an output of where they're at. So you've got kids finishing, high school, maybe going to university. So you've got the expensive period of, your life. You've got mortgage payments. You've got to make super contributions or 401k wherever you're at in the world, obviously building for retirement. So you're looking at someone's outputs, and then you're saying to them, okay, well, how long are you happy working for? When do you want to retire? Which in itself is a completely loaded question, and we'll delve into that in a little bit. Okay, so when you retire, what kind of life would you like to have, right? What kind of life would you like to have? How much money would you like to spend? What are going to be the main expenses you have in retirement? Now, in my definition, these are all surface level things, and by and large, they are primarily outputs. So you're then saying, it's, when I was first introduced to financial planning going back to, 1996. So it's this whole gap funding analysis, right? So when I was first introduced to, how to be a financial planner, all the way back in 96, there was this idea behind what was called gap funding, right? So where are you at? Where do you want to be? How much risk are you prepared to take on? What's your risk profile? And then from all of that, build a structure, build a financial plan, a strategy. So, what assets, what structures, how do we minimize tax? How do we diversify, reduce risk, etc.? And so the idea being that you're helping a client create a plan to get them through their life as they choose. The problem with that is that what's the real input for money? So if there's a gap, right? So let's say, they're coming up to retirement, but there's not enough money there. So what's normal financial planning do? It's about helping them maybe be a little bit more realistic about what their retirement's going to be. But what are the real inputs for finance with people? What actually determines how much money they have, how much money they're going to earn? What actually determines how much money they should make?
Oh, pick me. The people.
The people. So what do you mean by that? What do you mean the people?
Well, I mean, it's not like you can consider each of these things on their own, right? You can't earn money without you being the one doing it, right?
Yep.
You don't get nothing for you don't get something for nothing.
Right.
So, for example, say I rock up to work ready to do podcasts, but we're both really flat. We can't think of ideas, and our day's not productive.
Stop.
This has never
No, that's never happened.
And I mean that's on us. Like that's the people part of it, right? So we're less productive because of other factors, and that affects job performance, motivation, drive, aspirations, whatever it may be that kind of pushes you forward in order to produce those externals that we were talking about, like how much you earn, blah, blah, blah.
So what you're saying is how engaged someone is may determine what they get out of what they're doing. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
What's the definition of what they get out of it? Is it just money?
No.
Well, so what else comes into play?
Oh, well, for the job example, you work, you get paid. That's a big one. But you've also got, do you feel valuable? Do you that affects your self-worth? Do you feel like you're being productive? Are you being fulfilled by what you're doing? Are you kind of bored with what you're doing, in a bit of a lull? It all ties back.
So it's kind of this interesting dichotomy, isn't it, about money, right? So we're here talking about what the real financial inputs are. And really what you're saying is the financial inputs depend on the person.
Yeah.
So in other words, is every dollar the same? So if you make $1 doing something you hate, is that dollar worth as much as making it doing something you love doing?
Yeah, I mean, $1's $1. Let's not complicate things with exchange rates and
it's
dollar over time or whatever.
So here's a question, right? Or
Yeah.
let me rephrase it then. Is the purpose of your working life to work so you have enough money to retire? So in other words, you've got two stages of life. You've got the stage of life you hate, and then the stage of life where you get to enjoy things. Is that actually what it is?
No. Well, it might come into play as part of it, but that's not the whole picture, no.
So my question then is your life going to be better if you spend your energy doing things that you enjoy, right, to make dollars, versus doing things you don't like?
Yeah.
So in other words, financial planning or the financial input is really about quality of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, money has no definition. I mean, you can have someone retired with $500,000, right? Maybe quite not these days. Let's call it $1 million, right? So someone retired with $1 million versus someone retired with $500 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which one's going to be happier?
Depends.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So what things does it depend upon? What does the quality of your life depend upon?
It depends on you for the most part.
Yeah, so you mentioned a whole bunch of this stuff before. How fulfilled are you? Do you feel like you've got a sense of growth? Are you moving forward? I mean, this is one of the things that I've discovered in advising people over my life, and that is that everyone needs to feel like they are moving forward and growing in order to feel fulfilled. It's where energy comes from, right? So if you're a financial advisor and you're just getting people to retirement, right, and then you're leaving them on their own and you're not having a conversation with them about the real financial input, and that is, what are you going to do? What fulfills you? What fulfilled you before? What's going to fulfill you after? What, you think you can go and play golf 5 days a week and then that's going to be enough for you to feel like you're growing, that you have a purpose, that life is meaningful? Now, as someone who advised, reasonably wealthy, self-funded people through retirement for 15 years, I can't tell you the countless number of times that I saw people's life change for the worst after they actually retired. It's why I felt we had an obligation to actually hold their hand through this journey of, well, okay, what is your life going to look like? I mean, how many people get divorced after retirement, or they drive each other nuts, or they get sick and die like perfectly healthy, and then all of a sudden they're gone a year into retirement? These things aren't coincidental. So in other words, just to set the background, I'm saying that money isn't just money. Money is just an expression of value translation. And how value translation is working throughout that person's life determines the quality of that life. And whether they feel like they're growing, they're fulfilled, whether they're moving forward in their relationships, all of these things play into fact. And if we go back to the other end of the life spectrum, because we just kind of took a detour onto retirement itself, what actually determines, how much money you've got to make, or how much money you will make? Now, I'm gonna actually use an example, all right? So you've heard me use this example many times, and it's only It's only been a couple of years ago that we had this particular scenario, and we've had plenty like it, but because I've shared it a few times, I can remember the story well, right? I mean, we get this kind of stuff happen literally daily here as we're speaking to other advisors. So this is a financial planning client, right? So for context, and we're going to use some business advisory stuff as we go as well, because the same question applies whether you're, talking to a client as a business advisor or a coach or consultant, as it does when you're talking to people about their personal financial situation and financial planning, etc. So husband and wife, the wife contacts one of our advisors that we work with. And she says, hey, look, we're in our, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, we're in our mid-40s. We're just not getting ahead anymore, right? We're not making enough dollars to meet our expenses, and we need some help getting on top of those expenses. we used to be saving money, but we're not anymore. Can we come and see you? So, husband and wife, they go and see our client. And this, well, I'll kind of make this reasonably summarized, but you've got the wife. She's a teacher, reasonably senior one, making reasonable dollars, but not excessive as teachers do. And then you've got the husband who he had successful businesses, primarily in construction, concreting, etc. And about 5 years ago, he ended up giving up those businesses because his father was very sick, so had cancer and was going through, that really nasty journey that cancer can take people on. And so about 12 months before this conversation, his father had passed away. Now, what he actually decided to do then was he wanted to be flexible enough to be around for his father as he was sick and look after him. So he gave up the other businesses and he bought a tow truck. Okay, so, reasonably nice flash tow truck, about 300 grand worth. Paid cash for it. They were doing reasonably well at that point in time, as I'd said. So they've got, a pretty decent property. It's got a mortgage on it. They've also got some other property assets, primarily land that they were going to do some construction on, etc. And they've got kids going through private schools. Okay, so they'd managed to build up some reasonable assets prior to the previous 5 years. So they've got some reasonable money in retirement savings, etc. for that age. But nothing's happened since then. So no assets have accumulated. Credit card debts are starting to get out of hand and to creep up. And so he's driving the tow truck 2 shifts a week, okay, and earning about 120,000, Australian dollars a year at that point in time. And, that's an okay income, but not excessive. And if you combine the two together, it's about $200,000 worth of income. So they're doing okay. It's enough to send kids to private schools. But, obviously they haven't got their expenses completely nailed down. So what he said to our client was, I'm happy doing 2 days a week, but I don't want to do any more than that, right? I've got my flexibility. Driving the tow truck's okay. I like doing that, but I don't want to do any more than 2 shifts a week. That's where we're at. So this is our income. What do we do? So that was kind of the question that was framed, right? So hopefully everyone's got a picture of that. Now, I've been at different speaking conferences and all kinds of things. Obviously, that was before the whole COVID lockdown came into place. These days, it's more like webinars or the podcast we're doing at the moment. And I've thrown this example to roomfuls of financial advisors and said, okay, so what program, what offer do you actually give to this client? What can you take them through to help them? What's your process? So you've heard this example a few times, Tristin. So what do financial advisors generally say about that client? How can they help them? What kind of process can they take them through?
They're not meeting expenses, so it falls into like cash flow management.
Okay, so cash flow management. So let's take a look at what you're doing. Okay, we'll refinance your debt because obviously some of it's not tax effective enough, right? So we can restructure that. Maybe you're paying a little bit too much interest. We can do a cash flow management program, so we can take you through, how you're spending money, do some budgeting. You've got some credit card debt, so we can wrap that up in the structuring and the refinancing, etc. So in other words, we can control your expenses. We can get the expenses down and therefore, help you to actually save some dollars, or at least not be going backwards while you got kids going through private school. Yeah? Well, that's pretty much the standard answer. And by the way, that is the offer that our client had made to these people. And, as far as financial planning goes, he was kind of at the pointier end of doing that. So he had a program, we'll charge $5,000. We're going to take you through this process. And then that will move into more traditional financial planning. We'll take care of your retirement funds and, we'll do some things here, and maybe we'll do a little bit of salary sacrificing because that's a way for you to save dollars and, on a tax point of view, but actually get some money into super without affecting your cash flow, that kind of stuff, right? And so when we're talking to our client, Jamie was his name, or is his name, he's still perfectly fine. I said, well, hang on a second. Why are you doing that? Why did you do all of this work? Why are you promising to do all of this work? You're actually missing the real inputs here. You're just dealing with outputs. You're just playing with the outputs. So if I was sitting in front of a client, here's what I would say to them. Okay, well, this is easy. In fact, you don't even need to pay me. I'm going to make this really easy for you. You're not making ends meet, right? Okay, pull your finger out. Do 4 shifts a week. Go on. Pull your finger out, do 4 shifts a week. You're only doing 2, that's 120. Do 4. That's 240. You're still doing 1 shift a week less on average than everyone else, right? So what are you doing? Why are you only doing 2 shifts a week? So the truth is, it seems to me like you've lost your mojo. So the real reason that you are not moving forward in your life, that you're not saving dollars, is because you've lost direction. You've lost your mojo. Is that true? And by the way, this is exactly what I said to Jamie. Go back and talk to this client. Say to them that you're concerned because you've given them the wrong offer and you want to have a chat to them, and pretty much say this to them. So you've lost your mojo. Before you were successful, were you energized then? Yes, I was. By the way, these are the answers that came back, right? So I'm not just talking about what I would say. This is what Jamie said, and these are the answers. Yes, that's true. And no, I'm not engaged. The reason I don't want to do 4 shifts is because that would drive me nuts. So in other words, you're doing something that isn't fulfilling you. So what we've actually got to get you to do is get back on the horse, get you back to where you were before, get you a sense of direction again, get your mojo back. So if we can help you get your mojo back, how are you going to feel? And his response was, if you can help me do that, you can charge me whatever you want. Okay. By the way, that's not the first time that clients have said directly that. In fact, whenever we're talking to an advisor, I say to them, look, as you go through this process of learning how to be exceptional, and as you start putting different pricing, right? So the pricing model for that is obviously different to the pricing model of dealing with outcomes. The dollars go up, the impact goes up exponentially. And that's the reason why. Because you will have clients say to you over and over, if you can help me to do that, then you can charge me whatever you want. So instead of doing cash flow management, right? And by the way, he did do cash flow management, but much later on, where the output should be, instead of missing the input at the start. So what are the things when we talk to advisors, right, whether they're accountants or financial advisors or coaches or whoever, right, when we're talking to them about this kind of stuff and we say, well, why didn't you help him do that, right? And then what's the kind of fears that they have? So what's their normal initial response? Well, I'm not
a life coach.
Right, I'm not a life coach. I'm not qualified to do that. And then what do they typically ask us about after that? Should I go and do
life coach certification course
or estate planner practitioner
yes,
or whatever? Yeah, which I think this is kind of funny. Look, I've obviously spoken to lots of people who have done those courses and programs. I've not done any. Right? Yes, I've got 3 degrees, but that goes all the way back to, early in my career. That was in finance and investment analysis and technical analysis and that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, I still like analyzing investments. I'm still a nerd in that sense. But I also know that most of those things are outcomes, not inputs. So my point out of this is, right, that's what people say. So what's generally the answer to that, Tristin? What's the reality? Do any of our clients go on this journey of discovering that they were already exceptional advisors, they just didn't know it? Is that a fair summary?
Part, yeah.
So as we go on this journey, do they already know how to do this stuff?
Yeah.
They just need some framing and a slap in the face, really. And so hopefully that's what we're doing here today, giving you a slap in the face. What the F are you doing? Right? You're living someone else's definition of financial planning or financial advice or accounting or whatever. What the F are you doing? Right? Sure, you can be a good technician and you can even be a potentially great technician. But if you want to deal with the technicals, then you're dealing with the outputs and you are not dealing with the inputs, and therefore you are not as valuable. Okay? So the question for you is, in how you earn your money, how valuable would you like to be? How much input would you actually like to have in your clients' lives? Would you like to be the financial advisor that just helped this guy, this couple, right? But let's also talk about in that example what his wife said, right? His wife said, "Oh my God, I've been saying this for like years." Yeah, he's like a different guy. Yeah, it's really nice having him around and the kids appreciate it and whatever. But where's my excited husband? Where's he gone? He used to love what he was doing. Now he's flat. He's not as fit. He's not as healthy. So would you like to be the financial advisor that deals with the outcomes, or would you actually like to be an exceptional advisor, one that just doesn't follow convention and actually gives enough of a crap about their clients to go there? Because that's what it comes down to. What, you think you need to be a life coach to say to someone, "Hey, where are you at? What are you doing?" I'm not going to be so caught up in myself that I'll actually look at what you're doing and ask you the hard questions. No, that doesn't require someone who's got life coaching qualifications. If you're an advisor who's been doing this for a reasonable period of time, you've already got the technical qualifications, which means you've been completely trained in how to ask people objective questions and then take them through a process of putting one foot in front of the other in order to move forward. You've already done that. You just went surface level. So you already have the qualifications. You're a human. You understand what it's like to be human. So just go a little deeper and help people to look at where they're really at, what they really want, where they're in their own way, and then help them build an objective plan, right? You can't promise to give them the best investments in the world. You already know that. Can you promise to give them the exact right steps in order to get? No, that's not the point. The point is taking steps to go forward. All that's required for someone to get their mojo back is to have a sense of direction and movement. Okay, and I think that's a fundamental key point there. So by the way, that's why financial advice, even at the more superficial level, is incredibly valuable. I mean, I'm not dissing you and saying that you're not worthwhile. You are, absolutely, because you're helping people, you're asking them objective questions, you're giving them a frame of reference, and you're giving them steps to move forward. I'm just saying you're not going deep enough. You're not being transformational enough. And therefore, you're not valuable enough. And therefore, your pricing's wrong. and you're not being as transformational as you could be. So in that particular scenario, right? So we've got a client who's now got his mojo back. He's, doing $600,000-$700,000 a year, right? With some input, and the input is, well, we can get your mojo back without you going back to working, 100-hour weeks. You don't have to do that. So are they going forward? Yes. Did they need to count and pinch pennies as much as they were? No. But did we also take them on a journey of doing some budgeting and refinancing their debt because it doesn't make sense not to do that as well? Yeah, absolutely. So now you've got the double whammy of both of those scenarios. In other words, financially, the outputs are completely different. So why would you talk to them about reducing cost when the number one input for this client was how much money he's making? And how much money he's making is being limited by the fact that he's got stuck. He's got stuck in his perspective. He's lost his mojo. He needs a little bit of a whack to get him back on track. So that's the question for you. Which advisor would you want to be? By the way, which advisor gets paid more, right? So this is also an input for you guys. The real financial input for you as advisors is how deep you are going with your clients, how much you are owning your value, how much you are trusting yourself, how much you are using your intuition, how much you are actually setting aside conventional wisdom to actually give more of a crap about your clients, how much you're willing to have an interventional conversation with someone. Almost every person that sits in front of me in the first meeting was going to have a pretty intense conversation. Would that be fair, Tristin?
Yeah, for sure.
So how would you describe? Because you've said it on a few. And by the way, I'm not holding myself up on a pedestal here at all. I'm just trying to share my experiences with you, right? I'm a completely flawed individual, just like all of us. I'm just committed, like hopefully you are, to going on the journey of becoming closer to being an exceptional advisor. So when I have a first meeting with a client, how deep am I going to go, Tristin?
Well, I might answer your question with a question. You want to make your meeting valuable, right? You're meeting with them because you want to give them value. That's the premise, right?
Absolutely.
So when it comes to, most people are in the business of helping people. That's generally what we fall into as humans. That's one of our main drivers. We want to help other people.
Yeah, you can only really get a sense of value from being valuable to someone else. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if helping people is your driver, is there anything you really shouldn't touch on? Is there anything that you really can't help someone with, even if it's just sharing another perspective? What's the point of holding back and not addressing something that could be causing someone, like a little bit of hurt, a little bit of stress when you're trying to be valuable?
Okay. So then what's the risk of that, right? So what happens if you go somewhere and it's too raw and you uncover something that someone doesn't like you digging into? What happens then?
I mean, there's going to be nuance everywhere, right? But for the most part, they will tell you.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So in other words, you can dig into something and they can tell you to F off.
Sure.
I mean, they might not. This goes back to our last episode we put out, which is conscious and subconscious communication, right?
Yeah.
So if you're an advisor learning to use your intuition, then your intuition and your experience is also going to tell you when someone's telling you back the hell off.
Yeah.
So back off, right? It happens all the time. So in other words, when I'm meeting with a client, I'm going there and then I'm going to listen to whether they tell me to go deeper or not. And some people are going to tell me that they're not willing to go there. Yeah. Well, guess what? The fact that I tried, what does that mean? What does that mean? Some people come out of first or second or even later meetings and they don't like me.
Sure.
Is it that they don't like me?
It could be in some cases.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Sure. Not everyone's going to like you.
No, absolutely not. And is every advisor going to be able to help every person?
No.
So why would you hold yourself back is my question. And why would you hold yourself back from actually having an interventional conversation with that client and saying, hey, look, I'll give you this advice for free. Pull your finger out and go and do 4 shifts. Now, the secret, right, the actual pathway forward for you, and this goes kind of taking a segue back to our last episode, conscious, subconscious communication. What that client actually said was, by saying to you, I'm doing 2 shifts a week. I don't want to do any more than that. Help me. I don't have enough money. So consciously, if you are just listening to the conscious version, you would be thinking, okay, doesn't want to do any more, earns 120 grand. Right, that's our inputs. No, that's not the input. What he's actually subconsciously said to you is, I don't like what I'm doing. I was doing stuff before that produced more. I was happier then, and I'm out of whack. Help me. That's what the client really said to you. So when you're being an exceptional advisor and you're looking for the real inputs, you're matching conscious, subconscious communication. And if all you do as an advisor is deal with the conscious part, then you're missing the real inputs. And that's the problem. You're just not going far enough. So in other words, could charge this client, and Jamie did, to take them on a journey of figuring out what he should be doing with his life. Okay. So what about business advisory then? So this is a big subject, right? So the financial inputs are really people related, and they're going to be different in every scenario. And if you want to be a financial advisor or a financial planner, then you better bloody be asking deeper questions, and you better be putting aside your own fear of challenging someone, because the risk is worth it. That's the summary of what we were talking about before, right? Yeah, there's a risk. There's a risk that someone's not going to be a client of yours. Okay. Well, what are you going to base whether you're the best version of yourself, whether someone says yes or no? That's ridiculous. That's just your own selfishness then holding you back from being a better advisor. And the truth of the matter is, when you're that kind of advisor, people turn up, right? Not everyone says yes, and the people who do, they pay you more, and they're more valuable, and they hang around, and you have a far greater impact on their life. And that changes your business model. You'll be exponentially more profitable. The word of mouth will be greater. You'll be more fulfilled. You'll be more satisfied. So I'm giving you as a financial advisor different inputs. It's why when someone comes to us and says, hey, I want to take my business forward, I'm stuck, hasn't grown for 5 years, or how do I go to the next level, or whatever. And they might say, well, I need more clients or whatever. And generally we're going to look at it and go, well, hang on a second. What are you doing? What do you believe? How do you feel? How fulfilled are you? How much of your energy is being spent doing stuff that's actually constructive? Why not? What are the self-worth issues that are in your way? How is your own image of what you're actually worth translating to your business decisions? This is the stuff we always start with first. Sure, we could build the best marketing plan ever. Why the hell would you do that when you're the one fundamentally sabotaging the most important input? So that's why often advisors are not charging the right amount, and their value translation's crap. So what are the kind of things that people say, right, when we're talking to them about going to their clients or their customers to change the price or the value, or how they articulate value? What's some of the usual responses we get?
You've got the classic, I don't know if it's actually worth that.
Yeah, why is it worth that?
Yeah, that seems high. I don't think I'm delivering enough for that.
Yeah.
And then you've also got another pretty common one, which is, if we put our fees up to X, if I charge this for this service, what if it turns people away? What if I go to existing clients and raise their fees and you know, they say that's too much. We're gonna leave. It's too much of a jump. We don't think it's worth that. However it manifests
Yep.
in the presentation.
So what's some of the other fears they might have? So what do they think might happen to their reputation if they change their value and their fees?
Oh, so like one step further, you know, people start thinking, you know, you're expensive and you trying to scam people because it's way too much for that. And what if a client leaves and starts telling everyone that we're just charging loads of money for something that's not worth it, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and the what if I run into them on the street?
Yeah, what if I see them again?
You know, and so this again comes back to the real inputs, but we're now kind of moving more into the business space. So just for context, we don't just advise other advisors. We work with service businesses by and large. My passion is definitely in and around advice. I want to help lift up other advisors. I want to share all of the results of my obsession with you guys so that we can learn and grow together, right? So typically our clients are in the advice space, but because of that, we often jump in and work on clients with them. So I've got another example about this, just, you know, that we're working on right now at the moment. So I like using recent ones. Obviously, they're easy to tell the stories on. So this is another client of ours who, in this case, is also a financial advisor, which, by the way, that's not indicative of our clients. It just happens to be the two scenarios that I've got. And in this case, he's got some financial planning clients, but they're really only really doing mostly insurance stuff and a little bit of superannuation and things, because most of their assets are tied up in, you know, property and construction and whatever. And the reason for that is because they have a manufacturing and construction business. Okay, so I won't go into the specifics, but you know, they make and install in building projects really high end, you know, fixtures and fittings. Okay, like really high end. It's, you know, pretty much the best stuff in the world. So what happened is that you know, they're reasonably good friends with Aaron, our client, and they kind of saw what had happened to him, you know, going from 6 days a week to doing 4 days a week and having a more profitable business and being more fulfilled. Why? Because we dealt with the real inputs, right? We just didn't go, okay, well, let's look at your business and deal with the outputs. And so they said, we want some of that. Now, normally what we would do is coach behind the scenes, but it was it's a pretty big business. It's reasonably complex. They've got margins at all kinds of different levels. So what we decided to do in this scenario is I would be the front run advisor for the business advisory, and he would be my sit-in advisor. And as we moved more to the financial stuff, then obviously we'd switch that around. So when I say financial stuff, I mean the financial outcomes, right? Not the inputs. So we're definitely dealing with inputs at the moment. So again, same thing. This is a family business. It's multi-generational. You've got the son of the founder who is pretty much the visionary and he runs it. You've got the father who's still working there, you know, a couple of days a week, but not really having any input in stuff. Hasn't really been for some time. And you've got a brother-in-law in there as well. And then there's multiple other family members. And the team is treated like a family anyway. So we've got intergenerational wealth transfer issues. We've got succession issues. There's all kinds of stuff. The stuff that gets complicated in all family businesses. Now, most financial advisors would not generally think they're in a position to be able to talk to clients about this. And by the way, most accountants, because these guys have got a decent accountant, and right, same thing. This is a little too complicated, but it's not really, right? All it requires is a willingness for you to be able to have people-based conversations, recognize your own value in that, and help take them on a journey of steps. So what would most coaches or consultants, and by the way, they've had business coaches before. So what was their response after the first meeting with me. Can you remember, Tristin? I don't know.
I don't remember that
You didn't
one.
actually sit in on that
No,
one
I
because
don't
we
think I
had
sit on that one.
yeah because I had Aaron sitting in as my second chair for that one. So I remember the CEO, the son, said to Aaron afterwards, well, okay, that was a bit different to what we expected. We thought we'd just be talking to a business coach and he was going to run through the same stuff. Let's take a look at your numbers and your process and your systems or whatever. And straight away I'm into, well, where the hell is your headspace at? What are you doing? I had a very interventional conversation with the CEO. This is about 4 meetings in. Things are starting to go wrong in the factory, and they've got some clients that, there's a few mistakes been made in estimation and whatever, and costs are blowing out, right? And so I pretty much said to him, yeah, look, you've got some people issues here, right? So yeah, there's some people who've dropped the ball, but I'm going to say this point blank to you. You've been relying on other people to carry the vision part. So you took away your vision. So you've dropped the ball, right? It wasn't a case of, yeah, you've promoted someone to MD, right? And then you've let them do their job and then they haven't done their job, right? That person was never capable of having the vision like you. That's your role. And you took it away. So sorry, dude, but this is your fault. So that's the kind of conversations we're having. Now, what are the real inputs for business? What actually determines whether a business is profitable? And let's focus on service business. And by and large, most small businesses are service business. So they are a service business. You might think, well, no, they're a manufacturing business. No, they're a service business. High-end product, huge amount of people engagement in the operation. So in other words, their product is not fungible, right? So it's not like a Red Bull where every Red Bull's identical and you can mass produce them and it doesn't really matter to you who's buying them, right? Out at the other end. That's a more commodities-based business. So what are the real inputs for them?
Real inputs for them.
Yeah, and I'm challenging you with this one because this isn't one you've been sitting in on much, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be the same. The real input's always the people, right? So and I am guessing a little here.
Yeah, that's it's good. We get to challenge Tristin as we're going on this one.
So my best guess would say people and the roles they're filling, and if that's the right spot for them.
Okay. So what about profitability then? So yeah, that's a good point, right? I think. But what about the profitability? What's the key inputs for, whether they're making dollars and how they grow the dollars?
Key inputs for them making dollars. Well, they are producing something and sort of selling it on. So you've got margins on all of that.
Yeah.
So that could...
So what determines the margin?
Well, they do. Whoever's in the position to determine the margin, which brings me back to the people.
Right. Okay. So good crack. And yeah, I was throwing you a curveball there. So here's the thing, right? The inputs are the same inputs for your advisory business, right? Like the real inputs. The real inputs is how much do you think you're worth? How valuable are you? How much emphasis do you put on what you do rather than the impact you create? Right? You want to go back to that. Well, then, how have you learnt your own value? What lessons have you taken on in your life that maybe have given you the wrong framing? And how is that holding you back from actually charging what you're really worth for the most transformational stuff? You want to get to the real input? That's the input for you. So you want to talk about, this manufacturing business, what's real input? Well, what's your value? How are you translating it? How has your own perception of value impacted this? How is the intergenerational wealth transfer? And what I mean by that, how does, it was started by your dad, but it was passed on to you, but then, there was restrictions put in place and relationship challenges all the way through, and then are translated to ownership structures and whatever. So how is that? How is the environment that you've grown through limited your own perspective? So we deal with these things, and then we're able to move on to the next level of inputs. So for that particular business, they're not charging enough, right? They haven't got enough margins in what they're doing. These guys are the best of the best, and yet they're pricing as if they were market, takers rather than market makers. So they were pricing at their competitors, and their competitors aren't doing the same stuff as them. Now, admittedly, they're at the more expensive end, but that's because of the product cost. They're not at the expensive end in terms of margin. So it's really simple. We've got to go to your clients and you've got to say to them, well, which ones do you enjoy? No, we've got to say to you, which ones do you enjoy working with? What experiences do you actually want to have? What difference do you want to make in the world? Who do you want to work with? Not who can you sell to? No, that's the wrong way to look. If you're doing that, you're compromising yourself, which means the dollar you earn isn't producing you as much life outcome. And in my experience, that's always your first indicator of how to make more dollars as well, right? Because it always scales. So I think, how long since we actually started working on stuff with these guys? Like 6 weeks? Yeah. Okay. So we're already repricing jobs, right? Margins are already going up. So I think we're averaged across 2 business lines about 4% margin. And we've already repriced all the jobs. We're helping them to basically look people in the eye and tell them the truth and give them the real story and own their value. And we'll be at 15%. Well, all jobs are moving to 15%. That's just how it is. So so we spoke to one of the other team members the other day. I don't think you're in there for that one either. So his response was, yeah, like it's a completely different business. Everything's changed, right? Everyone's more engaged. Everyone's excited. Everyone's more connected. And yeah, none of the clients have said stuff you. By the way, what's the reality of how this translates when you actually go back to your clients and you change your own perception of value, right? And I talk about this a lot as well. It's up to you to decide what the value is, right? That's just it. It's not up to the client. It's up to you. Now, it's up to you to translate it. It's up to you to delve into their emotional context. It's up to you to be able to say to them, hey, look, this is where you are. This is where you want to be. Here's how we can help you get there. Here's the journey we can go on together. It's up to you to do that. What's it up to the client to do? Say
one way or the other.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't really matter. It's just
Okay, you're doing well, right?
Yeah.
I'm throwing you curveballs today. Yeah, you say yes or no, right? And by the way, where does your only price discovery come from in the marketplace? The only place you get actual price discovery is enough people saying no.
Yeah.
And how many businesses actually do that? How many businesses accurately price discover? Almost none in the service space. And I can't tell you the kinds of business models we've worked with, right? Just about all of them. You're doing too much for too little for too many of the wrong people. And the input for that is a self-worth issue. So what's the real input? It's human. And if you, as a financial advisor or a business advisor, accountant or a coach, if you are not recognizing the true inputs, then it's your self-worth issue. And that's my microphone drop for today. Okay. So, look, I think we've kind of delved into this a reasonable amount. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments and your questions. I'd be very happy to explore other examples. I mean, I literally have people throw me client scenarios, 20 of them a week. And I can straight away, because I've done this so much, go, no, this is a real issue. This is what they're really telling you. This is what you need to say to them. So if you'd like us to delve more into that, please let us know. We are doing this to be interactive, so please share, your thoughts and questions with us. Was there anything else on this topic you thought we should explore today, Tristin?
Not today. I think we rounded it out. Not too bad. I'm hoping it makes sense to everyone else and not just us. I think the main points are just that it's a people thing. There's a good quote. I can't remember who it's by, but you probably will. That there's not really business problems. They're all just people problems in disguise.
Yeah, I'm not sure who actually said that in the first
You're
place.
not sure either. Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, I use it all the time. Oh, I should say I don't quote. I just say it all the time. Yeah, there's not really business problems. There's not money problems either. Right? So if your clients come to you and they've got a money problem, they've created it. And if you really want to be an exceptional advisor, then help them figure out how they created it and how to change that. Otherwise, you're just dealing with a symptom. And quite possibly you're enabling. There's been certainly hundreds of conversations I've had with advisors about, do you realize how much you're enabling this? Just by not having this interventional conversation, just by letting your own fear get in the way. So, yeah, absolutely. Look for the real inputs. They're always people related. There's not money problems. There's not business problems. Now, do you still need to understand the mechanicals? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, of course.
So when we're talking to this business, do I understand margins? Do I understand production line mechanics? Yeah, because I've helped so many businesses through it. So yeah, we can get into, well, how do you actually figure out where you're changing margins at what level, and what does the margin need to be for a $2 million construction job versus a $50,000 construction job, and how do you calculate that? Yeah. But is that the transformational stuff? No. So if we didn't do any of that and all we did is dealt with the inputs, the clients still get the most transformational amount, and that's the bit they'll pay you the most for as well. It's also what they'll tell everyone else about, and how you end up with a waiting list of transformational clients just wanting to work with you as well. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in today. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Please make sure that you've subscribed to us on YouTube, on your favorite podcast platform. And please make sure that you're sharing this and you're putting some comments in there. We're not looking for anything. There's no sales pitch. There's no, there's nothing in this for us except a desire to share what we've learnt with you guys to a broader audience. So thanks very much, everyone. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Cheers.